Welcome back to LivAnimated.com. Let's learn something new. I have a very important animator here with me today. Her name is Peppi Tsui. Hey, how's it going?
Hi, thanks for having me.
No problem. If you're new to the channel and this is the first time or the first episode you're seeing, as you can see, we are on season 2. This channel and this video is made for people who are looking to get into the industry or who are already in the industry and looking to go towards what our guest does, which is she's an animator. So if we jump right into it, right now, she is a contract animator at PlayStation. So what are some of the things that you do as a contract animator there, and how did you go about that process of getting into Sony and working on their projects?
So we do a mocap animation over there for Cinematic, and we basically get the mocap footage, and then we have some direction of where this shot is going to go. And sometimes things will change of not exactly how the footage is. And you have to record your own footage, but usually we rely pretty heavy on what they gave us. And what we record is just a portion of small changes. We need to get that approved and then apply to that animation and blend that in and clean that out and make it look seamless. That's kind of like the broad stroke of what it looks like, in each shot.
That's awesome. So you're mostly working with mocap. Are you doing any like hand keyed stuff at the moment there?
Mostly is mocap, but then when there's changes like I talked about, it requires hand key to put the motion back in. But you're still very small portion. But mostly you're trying to retain, because the actors that they hire they really like, and then there's a reason behind why they want those motion that they act out. So our job is to retain that as much as possible. And when our creativity comes in is usually when the footage is not, the direction change or the footage isn't quite what they're looking for, and just a small part of it. And
That's awesome. That's pretty cool. So what we normally do is we learn about where you are now and what you've been doing. And now we're going to go all the way back to, I believe it was like, 2005? Let me see. We're going to education. 2005.
Oh, God.
You are at the Otis College of Art and Design. Now, in 2005, is that when you knew you wanted to go into animation? When you went to college, did you know before you went to college you wanted to go into animation? Like, what was the catalyst for you being like, I want to be an artist and I want to be an animator?
So there is a funny story how I started. It's so funny that I'm even ashamed to talk about it, because
you're on microphone now, so I don't know if this is.
All right, I'll bring it up because it's funny. I like to make fun of myself.
Okay.
I didn't even know animation was called animation.
Okay.
So I'm like, I like this thing that I saw Toy Story, and I like how it is, and I want to do something like that, but I didn't know the direction of going there. And so when I was in Otis, and actually even before that, I was actually first started in a community college, and I was like, oh, I should look for something, going towards that direction. And I just kind of picked a major called art in general, and I couldn't find a major at that time, back in the decades,
Yeah.
And I was like, couldn't find a major called animation, and why is this so hard? And I was kind of confused of how to get there. But to start off, and I was just picking art in general, so thinking that I'll just take a baby step of finding the right direction eventually.
In taking art, though, I mean, that still sounds like it's a pretty good start, even though it's unconventional of what you were expecting it to be. Were there things that you learned in art, like you're talking about, like was it like art history, composition, how to set up shots and stuff along that manner? And then did that even help you up until now to what you do? Like, do you still go back to like, man, I learned these fundamentals here about just art? Does that still apply to your animation career?
Yeah, I think as we get older and more responsibility, it's harder to find time to learn other things and to start off the foundation of learning everything, like which I had learned some perspective, some oil painting, some watercolor, a lot of figure drawing in that art in general classes in that college. Specifically, live drawing helps me a ton. And but at that time, I wouldn't know that. At that time, I just thought, oh, it's a bunch of things. I don't know what I'm doing. But like looking back, if I have to find time to like go back and learn live drawing and keep on doing that, it's a dedication rather than like now you have a college time to find your way. Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, cool. So let's go back up. So you were there for that's 3 years, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. I think you started, did you start working? You have a very interesting, so if what people can't see yet is that Peppi has been an animator for a long time, and she's been able to maintain her career in the industry. She has, I think you have a few places where they were like full-time positions, but the majority of your work has been like freelance animation, and then making sure that you can continue to find jobs for yourself and stay current within the industry. It looks like you started working right out of college, right?
Yeah.
So you went to the Famous Group. What was that all about? What was the Famous Group?
That was a long time ago. That was doing some commercial works and some website animation.
You mean like what we call like GIFs and stuff like that, or like just videos?
Back then, I don't think there's gift.
So
Well, reveal my age. I think.
So what can you elaborate a little bit more on what that is?
So we did a Chiquita Banana website. The company rebuilt the website for the Chiquita Banana website, and then I was hired to do some background animation with loops. Things that like you go on the website and you see, you hover over and then it loops around, and then animation change when you draw away the mouse, and then things are playing in the background.
Like the hover click mechanic that they had. Like if you hover over it, it does one thing. If you click, it does something else. And if you roll off of it.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yep.
That's awesome. So you did that for mostly websites.
We did that, and then we did some Dairy Queen, the mouth moving. And
was that flash animation? That wasn't 3D at that point, right? So what were you using? Was that just animated in Photoshop and you just had a sequence of images, or?
When my part was 3D, like in Maya. So,
oh, okay. Okay, that's awesome. All right, so it looks like, so we're going to be going back and forth.
Okay.
So it looks like 2010. So you went to the Famous Group, and then after the Famous Group, you went back to school, and you went to Animation Mentor. You were there for 2 years. For Animation Mentor, now is this something where you're like, I heard about there's a course where I can just focus on animation, or how did you come about this? Did you see it like as an ad or something, or?
I heard about the school while I was in college in Otis, and some friends were taking it while taking art school, and I just couldn't. I didn't believe. I felt like, oh, if you're doing art school and taking another art school, felt like you've made the wrong decision of what art school you went to. And I was just like, no, like I have to focus on my, the college in front of me right now. And afterwards, when I get into the Famous Group, literally it was my first job. So
and you were there for 3 years. So that's pretty good.
Yeah. It was still on and off freelance, but it's still pretty long term. And I felt like for me, I was looking for someone to supervise me and learn from them. And I felt like there's something is missing in me, even though I graduated from school. And so I thought about I need to strengthen my background. And in this industry, you meet a lot of freelance people. And some people comes in with more experience. And the thing that they talked about, sometimes it's like the first time I heard when I was at the Famous Group. And I'm like, how come I don't know all this stuff? And I question myself, what else do I not know? And so then I was like, I think I need to really, if I have to call myself an animator, I need to know what they're talking about. And I think I need to strengthen my education. That's when I went to Animation Mentor.
Was that a difficult decision to go back to school, though, because you already like started your career, you got a job right after your first Otis College of Art. Did you feel like, oh, do I want to go back to school, or were you like, I need to do this, and then you made the decision? Because I find it difficult to be like, okay, 4 more years, let me go do something for 4 more years. But then you know, in certain situations, you're like, well, I have to work, I have to support myself still. So what was that a difficult decision after 3 years of working to go? Let me go back.
It was a clear decision for me because animator is something that I really wanted to do, and I hate to feel like I don't know what I was doing exactly, and I don't feel proud to call myself an animator when I feel like even the basic, sometimes I look at the 2D animation, I'm like, I don't know how that it's formed, and I felt like there's a lot missing at that time. And the clear way was like the school popped up and a lot of people talk good things about it, and I was just like, maybe I should do something for myself, and that was the route.
That's awesome. That's pretty cool. So you went there for 2 years. You graduated, of course, and then you decided to go as a junior artist, but you were doing your 360 VFX. You were at a VFX studio.
Yeah, it was a small job.
How did that come about? Was that something that you found out about while you were just getting ready to finish the Animation Mentor? Or I guess one of the important things for people who will go down the freelance route is, how did you come about like finding these opportunities that you come across? I think that's what the important thing is I know a lot of people will strive and try to find freelance opportunities, but you know, how did you go about doing this right out of school? Regardless of it being 4 months or not, like it's an opportunity and you were able to find it. Like, how did you go about doing that?
Through Otis, I know a lot of people that are in the field, not necessarily animator, because my major was digital media, and a lot of people graduated as a generalist or a motion graphic artist, and people whom I know like were not really in the animation field. And at that time, I didn't know there were a difference between us, and I just thought, oh, we're all artists. But through them, I did get some contacts, and they were doing freelance at that time too. A lot of my friend, and they would give me an exchange contact and help me out. And so through that, I just reach out, and sometimes friends had a job that they couldn't take, and then they will ask me if I can help out. So that is kind of how I start. There's small projects here and there that I don't even know, like, it's just word of mouth. People are like, hey, maybe she can do it, and let's try her. And then if I want to take it, then, you know, it's an opportunity for me.
That's awesome. So it sounds like open communication and networking is huge if you want to survive in doing freelance work or freelance animation.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. So you were here. Was there anything at the VFX studio that you learned that you still apply now, or was that a different approach to what you just learned in doing animation? Because you're just now coming out of animation school, where I think Animation Mentor has you do like the bouncing ball, they have you do like a walk cycle, and then character performances, and then I think from there on it's character performances and facial animation. Is that similar to what you were doing at the 360 VFX, or were you doing more what you did at Otis, where it was still like website based? And
actually in that studio, I didn't do too much of animation. It was more like a scanning company, like starting to try to do mocap stuff. And
mocap was at a different point at that time.
And so it was a startup studio. So they were learning and I was learning. So I saw all this camera that they bought, and I was like, what are all this SLR camera? Like, there's so many of them. And I think I just started to learn the basic of how things work in that industry. Things I did there didn't really apply at today. But it was more about, I think sometimes it's more about like getting the momentum of going forward, and not necessarily at that moment it will be helpful for right now, but that momentum, the drive is pushing, and it's a habit. I cannot say every step in the way that it's something that I remember.
Yeah.
But I think that every step counts still, that I'm moving forward.
Now, with what you did there, that was back when mocap was still like the little spheres on their suits, right?
Yep.
Did you do anything with the process of setup or the behind the scenes? Were you there only for the shoots, or did you only get the data after the shoots type of thing? Like, because I think there are some things that probably would complement what you're doing now, because while the suits are different looking, I think the setup is very similar, other than the programs being updated, like the data, the FBX or BVH, were you still using
FBX.
those? Okay, it was FBXs back then.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Did you want to say something else? Okay.
No, I'm listening.
All right. No, that's pretty cool. I remember when we were working together, and you were mentioning like the mocap was something that you were interested in, like in learning more. And it's cool that you were taking shots at it earlier in your career, because it has changed a lot over time.
It does, yeah.
So I'm just gonna scroll back. I don't remember. Let me see. So you went to school again. So let's see. We got one more up here. So you went to Ingenuity Studios.
Yeah.
Is that right? All right, great. Woo! Freelance Animator. How did that go? What were you working on there? Now were you finally able to put everything that you've learned in school up into that point and go, yes, now the real challenge begins. I can start animating and show my skills and do it.
Actually, I was quite nervous when I got that job.
Yeah. Was it a big team? Were you working with like a bunch of animators, or was this a startup type place as well, where it was a few people?
No, it was a good size of studio, and I like everybody that I worked with. But to get that job, it's also through connection. So I just felt like, someone recommended me here. I cannot screw this up. But at the same time, I was really happy. I got the job, and I think right off the bat they were asking me to do like something in 3D Studio Max, which I wasn't too familiar of.
For people that are watching that may not know, like, what is 3D Studio Max?
It's similar to Maya. It's just another 3D program that you can animate. The interface is almost identical, but keys on the keyboard are a little bit different. But basically that's the same thing. But then they were very encouraged me, and then teach me how to use it. And yeah, I did apply a lot of things that I learned to that project, and mostly also because the people over there are pretty encouraging. Yeah.
Was this still games, or was this like things for websites, or was it similar to what you worked on before, or was it like just whole like fish out of water? You're like, this is brand new. I understand animation now, but what I'm working on now is like totally brand new to me.
There were a lot of new things. I think the first project I worked there was a car commercial. And there was a lot of car commercial in the commercial industry. And I think the most difficult to start was the camera animation. Because in school, I don't think I did too many of them. And car commercial seems to require a lot of car animation and camera stuff.
That's awesome. So you're working with like car rigs,
Yeah.
Were those car rigs, would you say, similar to like what Cars use, the movie, or like the animated film, or is it more like what we see on TV now or commercials now, where like the car is driving through the road? Was that all just CG with what you worked on, or was it a complement of CG and live action?
It's both. They shot some footage of a real car, and then they have some elements of 3D. Like cars wouldn't usually do.
Like the zoom in on the tires and they're showing the tires treads on the road and stuff like that type of stuff.
Yeah, and then sometimes the door would flap on its own, like it's on the beat of the music. Things like that 3D can do and the real car won't.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That's pretty cool. So from what I saw in here was, after this, you went back to school again. Now you went to Anim Squad.
Yeah.
And I give you praise for this. This is like, not too many people do this. Not too many people continue throughout their career to go and further their education. I mean, they may take a class here or there, but you go back and you really test yourself and you make sure, hey, I know what I'm doing. So you get that foundation perk of making sure that's solidified, but you also learn more tips and tricks and things you can apply. So you went to Anim Squad. This is different than Animation Mentor. What was that like?
That was a very self-focused class in less people. That was the first Anim Squad class was when they still had in-person class. So,
what is that? What does in-person class mean?
So most of the class nowadays are online, right? Like you take it through a webcam, and then the teacher talking through like the webcam, and then
it's like remote. So it's a
right,
remote.
right.
Okay.
And then that Anim Squad was in person, so you literally have to go and show your shot, and then everybody discuss it. And so the size of the class were like maybe 6 people, and you work on your shot, and then they give you critique. So it's very personal, even though there are a couple people in class, but compared to online class, it was much more personal, and you can talk to the teacher face to face. And I like that a lot because I had been in Animation Mentor through online, and I kind of miss the interaction.
The social interaction.
Yep, and then that was one of the reasons I think that I can get more out of it at that time. Yeah.
So you weren't going to a place and animating while you're there. You animated on your own time at home and then brought your shots in. Yes. And then there was like, an hour or two of like not only getting feedback, but watching other people get feedback, I'm assuming, and then critiquing together as a group.
Yep. That's, I think a lot of people are familiar with how the workshop are like nowadays. It's very similar to that. Like you show your shot every week and try to hit different significant progress every week, so the teacher can comment on it and you learn as much as you could with the limited time that they gave you, and other people would input it, and you always learn something through that.
That's awesome. I think that's a great way to communicate with people that you probably would never meet unless you worked with them somewhere. Yep. And you can build relationships and further network as well.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. All right. So we went to Anim Squad. We got some more skills under our belt. And then let's see, you went to NPC. NPC is a very known company. They do movies, commercials, and I think maybe cinematics for like video games and stuff and trailers and stuff like that. So the other thing we didn't talk about is how you're doing a lot of traveling too, back and forth. So this one's in Santa Monica. The other one you were at was at West Hollywood. Like, was there a lot of the freelance lifestyle? Is there a lot of moving that you have to do to be where the jobs are, or is there a lot of commuting that you do so you don't have to worry about picking up and leaving every time?
Yeah, freelancing, you have to drive a lot. And, well, I didn't have to move because they're all kind of around the LA area. But I think as my career grew, I understand our industry is more, even moving around a lot more. Like, kind of
it's organic.
Kind of like right now. I'm away from LA. I'm in San Diego. And if I want to go back to LA, then, I have to maintain the network. And so those are all part of the career. But through that, I didn't understand at that time. I feel like I'm just all still learning. When there's a job, then I'm like, all right, let me, see how it goes and take it. And the driving, everything, the experience just kind of soaked in later that, oh, this is how the industry is like.
Is there a passion there for the freelance because it's like a guaranteed you're on something different, like nothing's ever going to be stale? Like I know being at certain places for X amount of years, depending on what the products are, if the products are always the same, then you're like, it's a little mundane and just doing the work. You're still having some fun because of the team you're on and so on, but I can see how it can be very exciting and enticing to every couple months something's different, and you're completing things or you're working on things that will be completed, so you can feel accomplished. Is there a lot there with doing freelance that you feel that promotes that for yourself or brings that type of joy for yourself?
I think now is, but when I started, it was not something that I chose to be. It was just became that way, and then I adapted it. At first, it was scary because every time you go into a new studio, felt like I think maybe when I was younger, I was a little bit more insecure, and every time I get a job, I felt like people at the studio are, kind of like testing me, right? Which they were. And
that happens everywhere.
Right.
It definitely happens to everyone too.
Right.
Yeah.
But I feel like now, because I feel like I'm a little bit older and grew some wisdom, and I'm ready for that all the time, and I get more excited when I do that. But back then, when I was more junior, I'm a little more scared and felt like, oh, I'm driving in this new parking lot. All right, take a deep breath and let's go in and see what it is. But now I think I'm just changing a lot, and so I'm more excited than scared.
That's awesome. That's pretty cool. So NPC, how did that go? You were there for 2 months. This one's shorter than the other freelance positions. How did that go? Was that vastly different? I think when you were at the place where you did Ingenuity Studios, no, I'm probably saying that wrong. You were saying you're doing a lot of commercials, a lot of car commercials. What was different at NPC than your last position?
It's similar. I think NPC had a little bit more animators there. In the previous studio, like, it was more everybody do a lot of things, but in NPC I think it's a little bit more concentrated with, like, okay, there's animator that just do animations, and I can learn something directly through another animator. The job wise is similar, still a small team, and I was still very junior and just helping out with small things. Yep.
That's cool. Awesome. So, excuse me, let's go back. I think after that you stayed away from school for some time, and you went to Fish Eggs as a freelance animator.
Yes.
And so what was that about? That was in Venice, Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So what enticed you to go there, and then what were you working on there?
I was, I think, recommended by a friend that used to work there and told me that they were looking for a 3D animator. So it felt like all these things to get a job is through people that I knew. So the person that recommended me there was when I met at the Famous Group.
Oh, cool.
And she was a motion graphic artist, and she worked there for a while. And then she told me that, oh, they are looking for a 3D animator. Would you be up for it? And I was like, yeah, let's try it. And then, and I like the people there too. So I just worked there for a while.
That's awesome. Now it says Match Game. Was this your first game or video game since you've been in the industry at this point?
That was a pitch for I think a TV show called Match Game.
Oh, okay.
With I don't know how it goes right now, so I don't know how much I can say about
Right, like if it's been picked up or if it's
Yeah.
like in holding somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's fine. It's like after that you went to SIOP as a freelance animator, and you're there for 7 months. This looks like these are commercials that you worked on. So you were just kind of flexing a little bit in this position, like, because you've already worked in commercials. It looks like you've done more character work in this one. How was the team size at this place? You said before that a lot of the teams are a little bit smaller. You still felt that you're a little bit more junior. When it comes to this position, did you feel like there was a lot more that you were able to do? From what I'm seeing on the Cricket Wireless commercial, like, there's a lot of characters in there. There's a lot of things going on. How was that broken up? Were you able to have responsibility over particular shots on your own now, or just a specific character? Like, how did that position go?
So I love working at SIOP, and when I think I just put my reel together right before that. Um, well, to mention, actually, there's a time that when I was taking Anim Squad, I took time off from working in the industry and just built my reel. And after I built my reel and I tried to apply everywhere again, and SIOP was the first place, kind of I went back to the industry. So I felt like actually I've left the industry for a little bit, and then SIOP was the first job again after a while. So, and that felt really good because the team and everybody felt legit. Like it was like a bigger team, and there's more responsibility and feel like you're in the real production than just. I mean, I was still a junior, I would say, but I felt like okay, I kind of like stepping up to do more things.
That's awesome. So now this is where we have met.
Yes.
You went to Digital Domain, and you worked on Voltron. Congratulations!
You too.
We were nominated for an Emmy. So, but yeah, so I kind of know how that went. I think you did a great job. But how did that go for you? How did it go working Digital Domain? Was it a lot different? This was like a game or an experience, and it was in new media. We were working on VR. So how was that experience? How did that go?
It's very different. Like, I think my mind always from learning animation from a long time ago, and I was like, oh, animation is toe polish, like to the every last second to make it as good as possible. Every acting choices and everything that you put in has to be really thought out. And I feel like when it comes to Voltron, there were not enough time to do a lot of things. And the speed really did help me to animate a lot faster and looking things in a more bigger picture than polishing. Not a lot of time of polishing, I would say, but more like animating in layers and thinking in just poses and then just adding things by layers. And doing it that way was a little bit more organic than post to post.
That's cool. Yeah, I think that was a very unique project that we were on. It was cool that we were able to build out the team to be as many animators. Normally, you don't have that many animators unless you're just at like I'm pretty sure where you are now, you have a lot of animators that are on the team. But in doing a project like this, even for VR, you usually don't have that many people to help out and to work together. So how was it getting into the new medium of VR? Like, was it something that you had an idea of doing, or what was your take on what you wanted to do as animation or as an animator for what you went to school for? Like, at this point, were you at the point in your career where you were like, all right, I'm doing what I want to do? Or did you still feel like, okay, there's still more. I feel like I still more that I want to do. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
You mean if I have achieved what I wanted to do?
Yeah, because with going back to school and learning and continuing to learn, continuing to grow in that aspect, and then applying it, at this point, were you already feeling like, okay, I'm doing what I've trained myself to do? Because the memories I have of working on Voltron with you was like, your speed improved a lot. You were really fast, but you knew what you were doing. Like your poses were solid. Your facial animation was awesome. Like everything was like good as far as I'm concerned, right? So like you're doing a great job, but I'm just asking, like, because of all the schooling and all the things that you've done, were you at the point where you were like, all right, I'm good? Like you said before, you were a little more junior, but now you feel like, I'm expected to prove myself. I'm expected to do all these things, and I'm ready for the challenge. Like at this point where you feeling like, all right, I'm good. Let me just do what I know how to do.
I really appreciate the opportunity, working on Voltron. And I did feel like, because now you're working on characters that are more well known, and they are the cartoon that I know. So I get excited, when I'm animating them. I did felt a little bit like, oh, I finally made a step. But I still feel like I haven't made it to where I want to be.
Yeah.
I think there's always going to be in me that I always felt like, oh, this is not enough. But I truly mean it, like that I don't feel like I'm where I want to be. But I did apply a lot of things that I have learned to the project, but I think that's also why that I keep going back to school, because I feel like sometimes like jobs are in different style that because of production you are forced to do things in a certain time. Then I feel like after a while I need to refresh my memory of other things that I felt more important, to kind of make sure that I still got it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I remember I think we had like 8 animators, and you were one of the people who high adaptability for making sure that your work looked like what the project needed. A lot of people in industry find it hard to animate alongside someone else, and you got to keep the style the same. Like, so I feel that you did a good job in all that stuff. Like, it was one of those things where looking at the project, it's different when you go from certain shots to certain shots, but I know that there was a lot of lead in because of the way the VR project was set up, where we'll have 3 different people worked on each like little blip thing that shows up, and it still all has to be in the same style, the same flavor of the cartoon or the anime or whatever. So that's kind of challenging. Did you have to think about how to do that? Did that just come as second nature to you, like working along other animators and then going, okay, we're all working on similar shots, our work needs to be consistent? Or is that something that you've actually done before in a previous position?
I think previous position I didn't really have to do that much. But at SIOP, I did have to, obviously, the commercial had already a style build up that we had to follow. And the supervisor makes sure that I do that,
Yeah.
And then here for the VR stuff, yeah, I think the style of the cartoon has their own background already. The character's been around, and so there's a lot of reference that like we can go back and look at. So those really helps too. And once in a while, like I'll check on other people's shot and see how it looks, and make sure that I'm not too far off of what the styles were.
Cool. Let's go back to, I believe I saw that you went back to school one more time in 2018. So you went back to Anim Squad. So it looks like the first time you were in expert class, and the second time you took another expert class. When you went back this time, okay, what was going through your mind? Were you like, all right, I need to know X. I'm not getting that. Anim Squad is offering X. Let me go there. Or what went through your mind when you're like, I need to go back and take another class?
So, like, I think Anim Squad is a good school to learn something. Like, I think at this point that when I go back to school, it's actually pretty recent. I already knew my strengths and weaknesses of what I'm lacking, what I'm good at, what I need to learn. And I think having that in mind, and I want to find a teacher that guide me through that. So that's one of the big reason that I go back to school. And with work, it's really hard to find time. And I think a lot of people have tried to work on their shot, and just because, work life takes over. Part of it's because I want to force myself into in the school system, so I can produce something and make sure myself is committed to that in a certain time. Yeah, so I have no excuse of, I pay money to do this. So now I have to make it count.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you go back to the class, or you go back to take a class, is it because of the structure the class offers to help you start and finish a shot, as opposed to like, I would say, doing a weekend warrior type setup where you're like, all right, well, I'm gonna take this character and animate this, and then I'm gonna plan it out and do this and animate it, and then maybe I'll give myself a month to work on it. Is it because of the structure of what the class offers, or is it the accountability, like you're saying, I paid this money, now I need to do it? Like, what is that motivation there at this point, since you said it was fairly recent?
I think, first, I think I need to talk about my weaknesses.
Okay.
So I think when I work on my shot, a lot of time I do a lot of things, and until like a certain point, I felt like something isn't working, which I should have looked at it way before. And I think I try to, when I take a class, there's a professional teacher that told me that, you're on the right track, keep going. And I think that kind of makes me feel like I'm on the right track, so I won't be turning back, halfway through. That was my understanding of my mistake, that I spent way too much time in the beginning, and then I had to go back. But because I've done so much of that I know that I put a lot of thinking to start a shot now, way more than, before, because I wasted a lot of time. That's part of it. Yeah. So
self-critiquing, I would say it would be a big thing that you're learning or you're applying to your work now.
Self-critiquing. Yeah, I think more thought out of what your goal of your shot is, and is what you're doing really convey the message, or is it making it more blurry, like as it go along, or are you putting too much? Because sometimes things actually, animation, I think it's always clarity and very simple. Like, idea starts with very simple, and you can make it very complicated, but to communicate it with, by images, I think it actually better to make it more simple. So I always make it way too complicated. And so now I think, because of all my mistake and my experience, I try to keep everything pretty simple, and to start that and making sure that I'm still doing that when I'm on my shot. But I learned all that also through Anim Squad too.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's good. I mean, that's definitely where like the wisdom and everything comes in, as far as like applying it to your work and like kissing it, keeping everything simple. I forgot what the thing is, but yeah, no, that I think that's very important. So do you think you're going to go back to school again in the future? Like, it seems like it's something that helps keep you grounded, like from how I'm seeing it and what I'm hearing about now, because there's still things I'm learning about you now that I didn't know. But it sounds like, as an observer, like it's something that's keeping you aware of working on what you feel a weakness is, or just enforcing or reinforcing what a strength is, which is just gonna, even if you feel like you're not where you want to be, like it's, at some point you're going to be taking a class, and next thing you know, you might even be teaching classes, but you're going to be taking a class and you're going to be like, oh man, something's going to click, and then you're going to have more opportunities to apply it, and then it's just, everything is just going to be like, oh my God, like those moments, those aha moments, I feel come and go. Like, you can get an opportunity and you be like, man, I'm here, this is good, my life is going to be different, and then months in, you're like, oh my God, what is going on in the studio? Like, so when you have the observation looking from the outside at a studio, and you're like, oh man, this would be a great place to be, and then when you get there, it's not always what you think it is. But I do applaud you, because it is very difficult to go back to class. A lot of people don't recognize what their weaknesses may be, or things they may just want to work on, if you don't want to call it a weakness. Because what I know is that you're a very strong animator. So I look at this as like, man, what are they learning? What are they teaching at the school right now that she's going to learn? And so
told you.
no, I know. But when I see your updates and stuff on LinkedIn and stuff like that, and I'm like, what? She took another class? Like what class is this? So, but it's pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool that you do that. A lot of people don't do that. And a lot of people, like you said, it is difficult to find the time to do it, and then to even pay to do it, type of thing. That's what makes it more difficult. So after Digital Domain, you went back to SIOP. So you were able to keep open communication there. Like, how did that come about? Was it a recommendation again, or at this point were you like, what's up, guys? You guys, I'm open for, I'm available for something, or how did that go? How did that come about?
I'm trying to remember because I think in this freelance industry, there's a lot of emails going back and forth. It could be, I don't remember exactly, but I often send out emails, when I'm available.
Okay.
And sometimes I get lucky. It's not always. Sometimes they need people just in time that I need, like I need a job. And I think it's because like I have been keeping in touch with the people that I know, and especially with the opportunity I had before, like I'm not gonna like let that go.
Yeah.
So timing wise, it matched up when the digital domain work finished, then I can jump onto something again. It's all through just connection and communication through emails.
That's awesome. Yeah, it sounds like your network game is up to beyond 10. And that's good. And I think that says a lot about you as a person as well, because you don't burn bridges. That's the one thing I've learned, like, throughout talking to you so far, is like I've yet to hear, and this channel is not about negativity or nothing like that, but I've yet to hear you say that if something didn't go well at a place that you just couldn't go back, or you didn't want to go back if you had that opportunity. So that's pretty cool. A lot of people do burn bridges. A lot of people do things where they would either leave the impression upon someone where they're like, oh, I wouldn't want to work with this person again, type of thing. So I think that's pretty awesome, and it's pretty important if you're a person that is going along freelance and doing freelance work. So after this, you also went to Imaginary Forces, and you were working on, it says, a Lego Star Wars commercial?
Yeah, I think this job, they found me, and they hit me up, and they said they need an animator, and I was like, yeah, why not? So
you're like, I like Legos.
I mean, I've heard of the studio a lot.
Oh, okay.
And I was also, I think I didn't, I knew the project. I also like Lego. And then I was like, I heard of the studio. Why not? Like, let's try it. And the project style was very different, because I think sometimes when you bounce from places to places, they have just very different working style. Sometimes the studio is very animation savvy, like, SIOP is a very dedicated team, and sometimes like Imaginary Forces, they just need one animator to help them out, and so
to like finalize a project or a show or something.
Yep. So it's like, animation is all like what you create, and what kind of like a one-man person to do animation job, where like sometimes when there's a team, you need to be more communicative with the style, and like sometimes different people work on different character in one shot, then the style has to be matching, and the schedule has to be matching, and we have dailies and everything, but it's very organic in IF, and I also like it because I feel like there's a lot of freedom to create. It's just different. Like, I like the difference of different studio, and I think, as I said, I learned that as it goes. But in the beginning, I didn't know that it would happen that way.
Yeah. Cool. Let's see. next went to JibJab Rose. I know JibJab made a huge splash on the net when they started to do a certain type of video that has never really been done at that point yet. So how did you come about working at JibJab Rose?
I think a friend of mine recommended me that job. He couldn't take it, and then he asked me, "Hey, if you are up for it."
Oh, that's cool.
And then I applied for it, and then I had to do a test for it, and then got lucky, and then I got the job.
Was that still like a 3D animation, or was this a different animation medium?
Yep, it was a 3D animation. I think that's mostly is my focus.
Okay.
So most of my jobs are 3D animation.
Okay. That's pretty cool. Netflix Storybots. Is there anything you can say about that, or?
It's out. So
Okay.
It's a TV series for kids.
Oh, nice.
I really like the creativity in that studio. They have like a lot of different team for like 2D and like motion graphic. Everybody's super talented over there. And the 3D team is like animation team is pretty small, but then they're all very good. They're all very talented. So when all the creativity comes in, it's just like it just has a lot of room to grow. I think the owner of the studio let everybody have a lot of input, and there's a lot of freedom there to grow your talent. I think, and a lot of young people in that studio too. I think it's a very good working environment.
That's awesome. Now, did you work on the pilot for this, or did you work on one of the episodes, or?
I worked on season 2.
Season 2?
Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome. Is that something that do you have a desire to work mostly in video games or more commercial animated show type stuff? Like, what is some of your vision of what you want your ideal work environment or projects to be?
I'm still working towards what I want.
Yeah. I think everyone is working in some capacity towards what they want, like for the joy factor. But I know you have worked on games, you have worked on commercial, you have worked on advertising type stuff. Like, that's a huge spectrum of things. So is there any one of those that you want to go towards, or are you happy with like, hey, I'm glad that I have experience and the ability to be organic throughout the animation industry, where you can choose to take whatever opportunity comes your way if you want? Is that more of where the happiness lies,
I want to work on cinematic stuff because I think cinematic stuff has more character development, and it puts more meaning to the character.
More storytelling is involved with that as well.
Yep. And I think that's one of the reasons that I become an animator, because I like the story of the character, and it gives people reason to think about things when they watch it. So whatever the project is, like if the character is well developed and has a lot of backgrounds, I enjoy it. And sometimes it's just the people that like you've worked with, and I really enjoy working with them. That kind of sets like at that moment I don't really care like what the project is about. It's just about learning from those people that I like to work with.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've seen some articles recently on LinkedIn about if you build the right team, your project will be fine, whatever it is. Like, so I think that is kind of interesting, where if you have a team of negative people or people who don't get along, that's definitely going to affect the project. So that's good to hear that also has been a deciding force in like some of the decisions and stuff. That's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So JibJab Rose to Buck. So Buck, what I know of Buck was that animated rabbit movie that they made, right? That's the studio that made that, correct? It was with Blender or with the Blender
I'm not sure
3D program.
I'm not sure, because Buck has different location.
Okay.
I'm in the LA location.
Okay, so in each location, maybe working on a different
Yeah.
project. Okay.
Yeah.
So how was that experience for you working at Buck? Think this one is the one where you were there for a month. I think this is the one where this is the least amount of time you spent at an actual studio, I believe, for 1 month here. What was that like? Because you mentioned going into a studio or into a project and having to prove yourself, and were you there to fill in for something or someone, or like, because I think we both have an understanding of like how much can get done in a month or what you can actually do in a month. So how was this? How was it working at Buck? And then like, what was some of the things that you had to work on?
I think that was for a Facebook project, and it was just a short project. It was still a good project. I think I feel lucky that I always meet good people, and I enjoy that. So at Buck, like, I like working there also. I think everybody, I hope they like me, but I like them, and I like the working style that they had, and everybody was very welcoming. Even though I didn't know who they were at that time, everybody said hi to me.
And you're still using Maya there as okay.
Yeah, and like, it was also a similar type of project, kind of like commercial. I felt like the working style is very similar to most other commercial studio, which at that time I'm already familiar with. So it wasn't something that too new for me at that time.
Awesome. You went back to SIOP again.
Yes.
So what was it this time that drew you to SIOP to work as a freelance animator
When
with
was
them
this
again?
year?
This one, you're like, there's so many jobs. This one was October 2018.
I think that was for a VR project.
It's for a VR project again.
It was for a Christmas project that they did. I think it was really meaningful. I think it was for kids in the hospital.
Okay. So people who probably didn't have all the access to other games and experiences,
or couldn't even leave the hospital.
Right.
And like for them to wear like a VR headset and to enjoy Christmas. And yeah, I think that project I was like, okay, I work on VR, like, that's cool. I know what I'm doing.
Was this animated as well, or was this live action with like footage and stuff? And
it's cartoony, like animation.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was, has a little bit similarity of the VR Voltron stuff, because it's also a VR game. Yeah, it's interactive, not really a game, but
with the VR projects that you've been able to work on after what we worked on in Digital Domain, were you able to do more of the technical behind the scenes stuff, or like learn a little bit more about that process? Or on the projects, did they already have someone dedicated to doing like either the programming or setup design work, and then you focused only on animation?
Yeah, I am only doing mostly animation. Yep. And technical side of things, usually it's not what I touched.
Yeah. You don't have really a desire to do like more of the technical animation side of things or technical setup of things?
Yeah, I like the creative side way
Oh,
more.
okay. No, that makes sense. I mean, it's different once you start putting on another hat. Ignition. You said you did a logo for quadruped animation. I think one of the things I want to ask is when it comes to freelance animation, that it seems like that's just a whole nother job category where you don't have like a manager finding work for you. It's like you're doing this by yourself. And then from what I'm seeing, you have like 1 month, 2 month, 3 month, 4 month, 7 month, 8 month. When it comes to planning out everything, you have another layer of complexity on top of it, because you have to make sure that you have work after the current work is done. How do you plan for all that? Do you have like a calendar set up where you're looking at like, okay, I have this job, let me see if I can get something else for next, and then you may have like 6 months out already knowing what you're going to do or already have given a heads up to certain places of what you want to do. I think it's important for people watching if they go this route, because I think with the future of gaming and working remote and being really your own boss, I think this kind of gives you a sense of like you are your own boss. Mm-hmm. You get to choose what it is you do, where you do it, and it sounds like you may have a lot of the freedoms of working at home or working off site somewhere else and just kind of phoning in like, here's my shots, here's my files, here's what you've asked for. For the people that are looking to do that and looking to get into that, because you have such a wealth of experience of maintaining and staying relevant outside of networking, like what are some of the things people should do or know or try to follow to make sure that they can be as successful as you have been with being a freelance animator?
I think it depends on what each person's goal is. Freelance seems to be very flexible, but in LA, I think you still have to go to the studio. It's not always, most of the time you're not working from home. You have to be there, mm-hmm. which I enjoy more. But I think I don't have anything planned out 6 months from now. I don't know what's going to happen. And part of it's because commercial industry, they know what they get very in a short time, and then they'll need you the next week or 2 weeks, And when they need you, it could be a short time, it could be a month, 2 months. Like things are a little bit hard to plan out for the commercial industry. So the freelance world, it's not easy, I would say. And I do like it when I get a longer job, like right now. So, but I think there's good and bad, as I'm saying, like the freelance job type of style gives you opportunity to meet different people. And I do enjoy that a lot. I think I'm kind of a people person. And I like to work with different style of like, oh, this studio works this way and I have this kind of freedom, or this studio needs this structure that I need to follow. And they're all wisdom and experience. It's good to know. But with like more time on working on a project, more than, like a month or two, that's considered long for me. And I can learn more even more of their production and more of who I'm working with. And because sometimes, like I feel like I come and goes like from a studio that I don't get to know that person as well. And I do enjoy actually knowing a little bit more of the project and the style of the company. So I wish that I have something planned out throughout the whole 6 months, but I don't. And I feel like it could be something that I'm, need to work on.
No, it was just a general question because I know it's, as an observer looking into that, for me personally, I have done some freelance work, but I have not had freelance work as like my sole drive of like, this is what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And so like, I just know with the newer generation, I think that's going to be something that people are going to be more open to. If I'm to put on like my future thinking cap, because I think a lot of people enjoy spending their time doing what they want to do. Yeah. And so I think that kind of brings me to the next question of like, and I know we're not done with everything, but my next question, since we're on freelance, is how does that go with negotiations? Like how do you position yourself to make or be fulfilled when it comes to the negotiation side of things? Like when you're going to a place for like a month, it takes sometimes a week to get paperwork done, so there's 1 week, you got 3 weeks left to work. Or is it like you're signing something and you just start working day one, and then you just come to terms with whatever payment, royalty, or whatever it is, and then you're like, boom, here's your check, either during or at the end? Does freelance work where you get paid after the job is done in most cases? Or is it, you get put on like so a 2-week plan, so you're like bi-weekly like a lot of other places, or like how does that work? Because I know that's another complicated part of making sure that you can still live your life and you can still do the things you need to do. Like how does that all work as well? And what is some light you can shed on that for people?
Different company has their different pay system. As a employee, like we just follow of what their pay system is, and luckily I don't have any like back pay from other projects. I think every job that I have been, it's pretty consistent and being paid on time. Terms usually are presented to you either the first day, or before the project. They will send you email and let you look at it and have everything signed the first day when you come in. Usually it's that fashion.
So is it like an invoice you're supplying them of like the work to be completed or something, and then you just come to terms on
usually
when pay happens? And
usually it would have something like the project is NDA, you shouldn't talk about it, and how long is the project, and you agree to the term that you already been talking about, like through the email, and then they, present that to you in paper form, and then you bring your ID and stuff to the studio, and then they make everything in a legit documents, and you sign it, and commit it to the project until the end.
That's awesome. That's pretty cool. Let's look at the Just Cause 4.
Okay.
Animation. Now you're back on, and Just Cause is more realistic style of animation, right?
Yeah.
House of Moves is where you went to. House of Moves is a pretty popular place. You're there for 9 months, almost a year. That's good. That's good. Just Cause 4, for me, looks like one of the projects. It's similar to GTA, but I think because it's on PC, or they allow a version to be on PC, people like customize it like crazy. So I think that's where they get a lot of their following from for that project, because people are allowed to recreate and do what they want to do or what they feel is fun. So on this, you got your hands back into motion capture cleanup and animation. How did that work for the Just Cause project that you're on?
So this job, I applied for it.
Okay.
Because I feel like
you were ready to be like, I want to do this right now.
I feel like I want to broaden my skill set a little bit.
Okay.
Because I was doing keyframe animation, and a lot of people around me were talking about motion capture stuff, and I felt like, if I wanted to get more jobs and know more about the industry, I cannot avoid doing this, And so I applied for the job and want to learn, And I think their description at that time was like, you don't need to know, too much about mocap. And
was it like, we'll teach you on site or something like that, as long as you can animate?
I don't remember if they said it over there, but they just said I prefer that, but like, something like in that sense. And I was like, then maybe I can try, and I'm really ready to learn, because I was like, if they don't require me, then that's the perfect moment that I, just tell them I don't know. Right,
because they're not coming into it with the expectation of like, okay, you're just gonna like breeze through all this work or what have you. Like they're more important. They seem like they are more, not concerned. That's the wrong word. It seemed like they were more looking for someone who could animate, someone who knew what they were doing, and that this could be something you could pick up fairly easily, type of thing. It seems like.
Because sometimes people told me that, you just tell people that you know something, and when you get in, you just figure it out. And I'm like, I don't think I'm that person that I can figure it out.
That's funny.
And I'm like, okay, I just tell them I don't know. And then I think it makes me more comfortable that they know where I'm at. Like, I'm honest with where I'm at, and I don't ask for more of what I'm worth. I'm like, okay, this is what I know. This is where I'm at. Like, okay, what do you need me to do? I'm ready to progress. And so that's my mentality of being there. And I was like, okay, teach me. And it was very good to learn a lot of things from there. And everybody was super happy to teach me. They use Motion Builder there.
Oh, nice. Are you learning Motion Builder as well?
I did learn Motion Builder.
Ooh, that's nice.
And also on the side, I used Maya. And I'm still better in Maya, but in Motion Builder, I get a hands on doing things, and that was new to me, and that was the whole reason that I was there. I wanted to learn something new.
That's awesome. Motion Builder is also good for bridging. Like, do you want to talk about what do you use Motion Builder for? Or what is it used for at where you're using it right now?
Compared to right now?
No, to Maya. So like, what I was gonna say was like, my experience with Motion Builder is that Motion Builder is good to bridge shots together and bridge motion capture data together. Is that how you guys using it? I was just trying to ask like, what aspect of it are you learning with how you're using it personally for the project, and then how is the studio kind of using it for the project? For when you were working on the Just Cause, because you're saying like it was Motion Builder.
We mainly fix the body stuff, like body motion capture on the Motion Builder, and then we fix the face animation in Maya.
Okay.
So, and I think things can be, I don't know, but like I think things can be done in both ways.
I agree. I agree, because currently I am not using Motion Builder on my project, but there's another project that does use Motion Builder in their pipeline. But I totally agree with what you're saying.
I think there are things that are good in either one of them, and maybe it's a preference thing, and it's faster that they do things already set up that way. Maybe I cannot speak for that, but yeah, like I think sometimes I'm not familiar with things, and they give me the opportunity to know that more, and that's why I like it there too.
That's awesome. Since you're learning more about motion capture, what are you on the stage at these more recent places to help either witness or drive the performances, so you know like this is what I'm going to be working on to clean up or implementing? Has that opportunity come about or at all, or did they have a stage, their own stage? Because I think House of Moves is like heavily into motion capture stuff. Like,
they did have their stage.
So were you able to go and experience that and see like, oh, I see how this translates over to, hey, tell that guy to move his foot more or pick up his knees more, because I'm either gonna have to add that if he doesn't do it already.
I haven't had the chance to do that yet, but I was allowed to be like, like kind of see it before and after, and then we'll like meet the actor and actress with the mocap suit. I wasn't on stage helping. I think also because like the projects happens very fast.
Right.
So when we sit down, we just like do our job. But yeah, when I get an opportunity, like I wish to learn a little bit more about that side of things.
Yeah, it's definitely something to experience, because on the stage you'll have a bunch of technicians, and it's like a huge production. And then those technicians are making sure everything's functioning and running well. Then you got a whole nother group of people who's monitoring the mocap data as it's coming in, and is it working with the stage, like the VCam? Do you work with any VCam footage or anything? Yeah, it's a lot of stuff going on. It's a lot of wheels turning, and then after everything's said and done, things will get processed. From my experience, things will get processed, and then you'll get your BDH data or your FBX data, and then it's just it's in Maya for you, ready for you to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
So now you now are getting experience. You are a remote animator. You worked from home on this one, or
this one? Yes.
Okay. So Brazen Animation, how was it at Brazen? What were some of the things that you liked or didn't like now that you are remote versus going in? Because you already explained to us and everyone watching that you enjoy the communication and going to talk to people and just being present. So what was the contrast of that for you? And is that something that, since you had this as an opportunity, is this something that you would approach more or not?
I mean, I really enjoy working with them, and since they're in Texas, then I cannot be there, and I wish that I could.
Did you ever travel to Texas? Did they ever bring you out to go like, we need you to meet some people you're going to work with face to face, and then you do the rest remote? Or
no, we just meet everybody through online, and I just enjoy working with them a lot. So I think that's why I don't really care if I was remote at all. Like, I just love the opportunity to to work with them. But if I can choose, I do want to sit next to them, and just like, what can I learn from you? You know, yeah.
That's awesome. What were some of were you still doing mocap animation here? Were you doing commercial work? Like what was Brazen all about at that time?
We were doing some game cinematic stuff, and it was also a short project, and we were not doing mocap. We were doing keyframe animation in Maya, and it was very hands-on. That like our communication has to be very clear, because since we're in a different time zone, and so like knowing when you to like submit your stuff, and they will get their stuff on time, and when they say 5, it's not your 5, it's their 5. And those things, I think it's the first thing that I make sure our communication is clear, and where I put my files online and they can get it. And when they deliver me stuff, I need to confirm that I got it, not just like, yeah, like everything just has to be super clear. That was my first goal when I work remote, because I think when you're not there, you're easily being forgotten.
Or that's how it feels.
Yeah, like I mean, I don't mean that they think you're less important, but it's just more like they have other things to take care of, and then I would assume that they hope that the last thing is like to manage, like when you hand in your work. So to me, that was a responsibility that I should just take on right away. When they give me work, I'm like, okay, I need to be on top of it way more than, because sometimes when you're in the studio, like I think you hear like, oh, like the meeting change and all that stuff, then you already get the news, of what the structure and the schedule or the timing of, or what's happening. But like while you're like out of mind, out of sight kind of situation, like I think the communication has to be even more clear with the team. So, and I think that's also a good experience for me of how to manage that. Yep.
That's awesome. Being remote, do you feel like that is something that you would entertain in the future, like doing remote work? And then I guess looking at doing remote work, because I've done some things that have been remote, but I enjoy just being able to, I don't mind being in solitude and like being like, okay, I'm just going to do this. What are some of the takeaways that you feel, because you said you went back into doing hand-keyed animation stuff. So how was the feedback given? If you're not there and you do have feedback, like did they just give you like a text feedback of like at the minute or on the frame of what is happening, this is what we want, or this is what we like, or whatever? Did they do like draw overs? Like how was feedback given to you with being a remote animator on this project versus the FaceTime you get when you're on site and you're like, oh, okay, I got it, and you can go right back into work?
Yeah.
Was there a lot of did you experience a lot of like either confusion or a lot of you had to ask questions more because you're like, if you don't meet on video or to talk about it and you only have your feedback because of what you're saying, they may have a lot of things they got to take care of, and you kind of feel like I'm just kind of here on my island. How was that experience?
If I do have any confusion, I would make sure that I asked, so I don't go to a different direction and waste your time. Because I think every minute counts. When I'm spending time on things that I wasn't sure, then it's not time well spent. Unless you're like somewhat sure about the direction, then you think you have a room to explore it, then maybe I would try that direction. But especially the first time, if I work with a company if I'm not sure, then I think I'll make that clear before I start. Like I don't think I would be afraid to say that I am not sure, because it would be even worse at the end, knowing that at the end they tell you, no, this is exactly wrong. And so, but that wasn't the case with them. Like I think our communication was pretty clear, and I got a lot of draw over, and drawing over is way more clear to me. It's a visual communication than words. There's some, notes that are just words, but I think the communication was very clear that I didn't run into any problem thinking that, I'm on an island, I'm helpless, that I don't know, like the direction wasn't clear. None of that was happening to this project.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah, I just want to ask because I know sometimes coming from mocap and then going back into hand keyed, like there's like this kind of phase of like, oh man, my approach is different. How I start is different. And like, it's almost like, riding a bicycle. Like the first time you start laying out some keys and doing your master poses, you're like, I don't like this. But it's not, I would say it's not that you don't like it. It's more like you just came from doing mocap. Mocap is a different process than doing something from scratch, So that's one of the things I was like kind of asking about as well, because I know that's it's almost like a different medium, like when you're working with mocap, because, in mocap, there's all this, I don't know if anyone can see it. There's all this
Jittery.
That you get. It gives it that believability of like, there's life happening. It's there. It's not just, and then you're like, like how pose to poses, which is fine because you're still storytelling, but there's a lot there that you have to maintain and keep. And then if you're doing animation that's supposed to be lifelike by hand, you still need to add like that type of feeling. You can't just put a noise filter on everything at the end and go, oh, there it is. So there's a lot of keys there. It's a lot of work. So that was one of the things I was trying to just think of, if there was any, and maybe complication is the wrong word, but if there was any like ideas to workflow once you got back into doing hand keyed stuff as opposed to coming from doing like your work with mocap.
I think even till now, I'm more familiar with hand keyed than mocap, because I've been more explored to that and through my experience. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I felt like actually it's the other way around, that at that time when I'm working with Brazen, I feel like, I'm much more comfortable doing keyframe.
Okay.
The mocap side of things is something that I am still trying to explore more, and which I have the opportunity right now to do so.
How are you going, other than working with the people that you work with day to day, how are you going about elevating your mocap skills?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Other than working with the people you work with day to day and learning from them and so on, how else are you elevating your mocap skills, since you're saying like you're still working towards your process and how to work with that?
Well, I'm talking about the job that I have right now.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, I'm not talking about Brazen either. No, I was talking about where we are.
Yeah.
I didn't say PlayStation. I didn't say PlayStation or anything like that. We didn't move this up higher.
Oh.
I didn't know that Brazen was after where you are now. But yeah, my question is for like where you are now. So like, because you're saying like you're still even now learning more about mocap, how to process it, how to animate around it to get the performance you want.
Yeah.
So my question is, other than working with the people day to day, that you can be like, oh, that's how you do that. That's how you do that. Are there other means that you're going about to elevate how you clean up mocap and how you process the mocap data? That's what I was asking.
Not really outside of the job.
No.
I learned a lot through the job. Like the job right now that I have for mocap was very, very like motion capture heavy. And I learned so much.
Wait. Motion capture heavy, what does that mean? You mean that there's certain actions that need to be retained in the capture that you need to work around, or what do you mean? It's motion capture heavy?
I'm saying that's like right now the project itself is just motion capture.
Oh, okay.
So all I learned, and mostly it's the technical side of things of cleaning up and like how to make things very efficient, to animate on top of it, clean that up, and create things on top of it. Not really outside of the job at the moment. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay. What are some of the things that you would inform people looking to either go into being a freelance artist or are probably already a freelance artist, what are some of the things that they should keep in mind or be doing to ensure that, you know, they can maintain and continue to do what they love, which is animating?
Again, I think it's what's the goal of why are you doing this? It's freelance your choice. I don't think freelance is easy at all. And the goal, if it's to doing, which was mine, still mine, like I just want to improve my animation skill all the time. And that's why I keep taking the classes. And the flexibility of the freelance style can give you that, I think. But if your goal is to be at a place and promote to a certain level of an artist, I think sticking to a company would be a better way to go, in my opinion. And I think, I don't know, like sometimes I think people like the flexibility of the freelance industry because it gives you time off and the time that you choose your schedule. So I think it's depend on different person of what you like more. I think if I ask another person, they would prefer a full-time job more because of the security.
Sometimes that's more secure. Sometimes that's not. But yeah, and I totally understand what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. I think freelance, what is one thing that I've learned the most is like, because it's kind of managing your business, have to know what they're looking for and what you can provide for them. It's just a business, right? And to not like, I mean, to know how much you're worth and
like how much your time is worth for the project.
Yeah, and know what your skill set are at and what you're capable and not capable of and what you're going into. And don't be afraid to ask things that you might not be clear about, even the terms. I mean, it's your right to know those things. And I think how you present yourself, it's very important. I think eventually, it takes me a while to manage so-called business, like of like, eventually like I'm replying email and like receiving them when I get jobs, that sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm managing, my business.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a good thing to know, to learn. But yeah, like I think just the way you present yourself, of how professional you want to be, those are some important things to keep in mind. And I think sometimes when a studio like asks for something that that maybe you don't know and you're willing to try, like it's okay to say it and just be honest. I think that would be the one thing that I felt like it should be always keep in mind.
I like that you said, or I like how you look at it as like you're promoting your business. And what I wanted to ask about that is like, do you ever like promote and market yourself as far as like going into like the CGraphs or GDCs or anything like that? Because you are your manager at that point. So do you ever find, or do you think it's beneficial to promote yourself in those venues to look for more work? Or because I know from talking with you right now, like your background is more of the networking side of things with people you've met and you've talked to. You've gotten a lot of people to refer you to positions, and you've gone out on your own a few times to like be like, hey, I want to work here, or I want to do this right now. When it comes to those trade shows and stuff like that, have you considered, or do you already do that and go to as many trade shows as possible to like promote yourself and really put yourself out there, like, oh, like as if you're your manager, and you're like, but I'm moving from the mic, I'm sorry. You're like, I am the person, even though you're talking to maybe someone at another company, and it's almost like you're promoting yourself. You're talking about yourself, and you're like, oh, well, I am that person, you know.
Yeah.
Does that cross your mind at all, or do you do that currently, or is that something that would be beneficial or not?
I don't think those things. I have done a lot of those before.
Mm-hmm.
Going to a lot of CTNs and
What is CTN for people that don't know?
Creative Talent Network.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I think it's coming up in November every year for animators and artists. There's a lot of talks and artists selling their artworks, mainly focused on animation.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to go to there a lot to show my work and ask for opinion. I think a lot of people do. And I think I do that a little bit less now. Instead of focusing on my skill, like I spend more time on putting things. I try to like animate more things that I'm interested in and put it online so people can see it. And I feel like everybody is looking at their screen nowadays, that what you put up there, it's part of the promoting.
Yes, that's true.
Showing up, it's important, and I think I do a little bit less though, just because of time. And I feel like I live so far away from LA and a lot of things I missed out. So I kind of try to focus on the online stuff at the moment. But I always encourage to show your work though, because if you hear opinion twice or 3 times, then something to think about if those are, valid. But I think sometimes when someone gives feedback that you hear one time, maybe a personal opinion, and if you hear it twice or more, then maybe like, oh, maybe it's something that I should work on. Yeah.
That's good advice. I like that. That's awesome. That's awesome. That's cool. So we are already back to, where you are currently. We've already talked about it. We've already talked about a lot of things with freelance. Is there anything that you want to say or leave for the viewers that are watching this about freelance opportunities or just anything in general?
I think freelance-wise, if you know more than animation, it's easier. Like me, I only know animation, which makes it a little bit harder. And if you know rigging and other stuff that you can help out with the project, it's a lot more beneficial. People would tend to hire you more because you're worth more. But I also hear the other side, that I know when someone know compositing, for example, and they want to be an animator, and they can do both, but since they know compositing, they'll just get jobs more on that side. So it's, again, I think it goes back to what's your focus and what the time at that moment, that do you want to make the money or do you want to get a better project? And I always think knowing better, it's more beneficial to an artist, which I wish I can know more. But I just always come back to animation of like, oh, this is my passion. I'd rather spend time on that. But if I have, when I go back to college, like trace back, that time, if I knew that I had to take more classes in other category, I would try to branch out myself a little bit better and have more skill under my belt. So when I promote myself, I just know a little bit more. Yeah, and I think that is one thing about freelancing. Yeah. That's
awesome. Well, I thank you for taking the time. I think this has been awesome. You shared a lot of great gems on like freelance animation and your background. I think a lot of people are going to view this as a wealth of information, dealing with either where they want to go with freelance animation or if they're already in freelance, things to keep in mind. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Of course. I hope it helps.
Thank you guys for watching. I hope you learned something new. We'll see you again next time. Thanks. Bye.